How's everyone doing? Thanks for joining me on my small engine repair channel. Today's video is dedicated to preparing your winter equipment for storage throughout the summer. And for today's video, I'm going to use my Toro CCR 3650 single stage snowblower. So guys, welcome back to the channel. The biggest thing we can do for ourselves and make life easier for ourselves in the fall and winter for next year is to prepare our snowblower for storage. The number one thing and the biggest problem that I always have with no start conditions is within the fuel system. So the biggest benefit we can do for ourselves is to actually drain all of the fuel that is in the tank and the carburetor so that it's nice and clean when we go to put in fresh fuel next fall, next winter. Okay, so if you have a jerry can full of gas you've been using all winter long, there's still some left in it, go ahead and put that in your car. If you use two-stroke stuff, if it's just a little bit, you could put it in a full tank of gas. It's not going to hurt. That little bit of oil is not going to hurt the engine on your car. But if you're worried about that, recycle it or use it in your two-stroke equipment over the summer. But we don't want to store that all summer long and then try and use that next year. The ethanol in today's fuel is just going to wreak havoc, and it's probably not going to work in your snowblower next fall if you just store it. So to get into it, we're going to get at the fuel system first. So I flipped the unit up on its bucket there. And what we're going to do is take off this back panel. It's a 2 5/16 or 8mm. Okay, and then I just usually put the choke lever in the center, and this guy should just slide right out, exposing the meat and potatoes. All right, so here's our fuel tank, of course. What I'm going to do is pinch off this fuel line with some fuel line pliers. Okay. And we'll go ahead and remove the fuel line clamp. Okay, and I have a bit of a rag here, just kind of absorb some of this. I'll take my fuel line removal tool that I made, stick that on there, and some fuel is probably going to leak out. Might get lucky. Okay, no, we got lucky. There is probably a little bit in the fuel line right there. So next what we want to do is grab some sort of a container to capture the fuel. So what we're going to do is then just try and drain out all the fuel out of this fuel tank. I might have to flip it up on its wheels because as you can see there's no fuel coming out. And I believe there is some fuel in the tank. So there we go. I just purchased this unit used from a gentleman who is moving back to New Zealand. He was just trying to get rid of it, and I got it for $100. And it's actually the same unit as I have over here, which I've been using all winter long, which I love, but that one doesn't have the electric start. This one has the electric start working, and it fired right up when I tested it. So we're just going to let that all drain out. All right, so the fuel's all drained out. Now, just going to put that back on. And go ahead and put my clamp back on now. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take it outside and actually fire it up. Now the purpose for this is to try and drain out as much of the fuel out of this float bowl and burn all of that off, because I don't want any fuel remaining in the carburetor for the duration of the summer. I just want this fuel system cleaned out 100%. Alright guys, so that's it. It ran for about 2 minutes on the fuel that was in this float bowl, and then when it started to sputter, I had the choke off. When it started to sputter, I actually turned the choke on, and that actually will help to use up as much of that fuel in the carburetor as possible. Alright, so the last step with the fuel system here is I am going to take off this float bowl for this carburetor. Sometimes there's still a little bit that kind of remains in this little catchment area, and I want to try and get as much of this out as I possibly can. Reason being is if it sits in there for any length of time and there's some ethanol fuel or ethanol in that fuel, then it could gel up, and I've seen that lots of times. And that could cause issues in the next season. Alright guys, so very little fuel left in there, but a little bit of grunginess down in that little catchment area. Alright. So what I might do is just a little down and dirty sort of carb clean on this. So I could take this little spring off, or screen off, I'm sorry. I clean that out with some carb spray. And then I'm going to take out this little jet right here. And then I'm going to spray that out with some carb spray. Spray some carb spray up and in through there. And clean out this float bowl and put it all back together, and that should get me all set up for the summer storage on this one for the fuel system. Alright, so just take a big flathead screwdriver, pull this jet out. Now there's going to be a little smaller jet as well. Sorry, this big tube here is the emulsion tube, and that's what kind of changes the raw fuel into like a mist or a spray. It comes out of these little holes right there. So you're going to want to make sure that you spray carb spray in all these little holes, and you'll make sure that those are all nice and clear. You can run a wire through them if they're not. And then right here in the end, there's another, that's actually your jet. That meters how much fuel goes into that tube. You can see it looks clear because you can see the hole right down through it. Again, spray some carb spray in there. You might have to get a piece of wire if yours is clogged up. Mine was not clogged up. So just make sure that's nice and clean. Then you can spray up, some carb spray up and in here as well. And that should be good enough if your machine was running to get it nice and ready for next season. Okay, so I got you flipped back up here, and what we're going to do next is take off this top panel. and took out the key. Then you got 3 5/16 bolts over here. I'm just going to remove those. All right, so I got those loosened off, and then your panel should just come off here, slide up. Now you're gonna have to pull out your handle, your pull handle here. Give yourself a little bit of room. All right, and the reason why we're doing that is it's going to give us access to our spark plug. Right there. Okay, so I'm going to pull the boot off from below, and then we're going to grab, so from up and underneath, you're able to pull off the boot, which I just did, up and under here. I apologize, it's hard to see, but you can see I got the boot off of the spark plug there now. And I'll just put my spark plug wrench down in there and pull that spark plug out and take a look at it. Alright guys, so the spark plug doesn't look too bad. A little bit of sort of oily residue on there, but it's not too bad. This would be a good candidate to clean up and put back in the machine. So what I'm going to do is take this over to my wire wheel and clean that up, and then I'll show you how I re-gap the spark plug. And if you don't have a wire wheel, just use a wire brush, clean it up as best you can, spray some carb spray on there, make sure there's no debris left behind, and then we'll gap it. Alright guys, so here's my new clean spark plug. Alright, now we're just going to check the gap on it. So you just stick it in one of these spark plug gapping tools. It's really only about a couple bucks. You stick it in at the lowest end here, 20 thousandths, and then you just rotate it around until you get it's kind of stuck in there. So right now we're right at 30 thousandths, so I don't need to adjust this one. If you had to, I mean, this is a fairly soft metal there. You can push that down to make the gap smaller, or you can, if it's too small, then you can just put it in here and then just kind of angle this tool up a little bit to kind of make that space a little bit bigger. So this is ready to go back in the machine. Alright, so I got the spark plug back in, the boot's back on. There it is. Okay, so that's good. The next thing I'm going to do is check the primer bulb, since I got this all taken apart anyways. And I don't know if you can see that, mine is getting brittle and it's starting to crack. There's a little crack in that center. That hole's just a little bigger than, it's actually missing a piece. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that. Now I do have a video, so I'm not going to show it in this video. I do have a video, which I'll link here in the top corner, that actually shows you how to replace the primer bulb on one of these Toros. So I guess the next thing we'll do is just an inspection of the belt. Alright, so I'm going to take these 3/8 bolts off. Now there's nuts. There's a couple of lock nuts on the back here, which are 7/16. So that's for these two guys, and then there's another one, a longer one without the nut. And I'm sorry, there's two more back here as well. Forgot about those two. And this one, you have to lean up on the bucket here to get at it, because the wheel is in the way. And there we go. So for me, I always, first thing when I take the this guy off, I'm just inspecting a couple of things here. A, how much of this rubber dust is in here, and B, sort of this bottom edge of the cover. You can see this has been riding on this bottom edge for a little bit. That means that somebody ran this machine with the skid plate down here was all trashed. So I think it's since been repaired. I don't know if you can see on this side here, there is actually a gap, so it's not riding on that bottom plate. So I think someone has actually remedied that problem. We'll get to the auger paddle and the skid plate here in a second, but the other thing here, you can check along this bottom edge, see how much wear there is. But this one looks okay, except the plate, the cover plate actually has a little bit of damage and wear to it, but it's not worn through, so it's okay. All right, so in here we're kind of looking for a couple of things. Overall, we're looking for belt condition and also belt tension. Okay, so take a look at this. Look at how much slop there is in this belt. Now there's supposed to be some. Oh, and I think we're missing a spring in here as well. That's supposed to bring this idler back, and it's actually supposed to put tension on this bar to help stop the auger from spinning. So that'll be I do have a video on how to replace the spring, and on this guy I'm just actually just going to try and see if I can't see if it's actually missing altogether, because a lot of times they are missing, and sure enough, this one is actually missing. You see that little arm with the hole in it right there where my flashlight's shining on? It's supposed to be a spring attached from there, and then it goes over down in here in that area. So I do have a video on how to replace that spring, and I'll again put a link up in the top right corner here now, and you can access that. All right, so overall belt condition. Well, this, again, the tension on this belt is way too loose. Okay, part of it is, no, not in this case. So the belt tension on this guy is way too loose. I like to have maybe about an inch of play when it's not engaged. So this needs to be adjusted. I do have, again, a video on how to do that. I'll link in the top right corner on how to adjust this belt. So we're looking for the belt tension. We're also going to look for the belt condition. For this, I'm going to take the belt off. It's that easy. So what we're looking for is sort of nicks like that one. Now, that's not too bad. It's only on one rib. And I'm just going to kind of spin this inside out. And I'm looking for major cracking, major sections of the belt missing. Okay, again, a couple small little nibbles out of that one. It's not too bad. I'm just going to keep going around the whole length of this belt. And overall, the belt looks like it's in pretty decent shape, minus those couple of areas. But those are really small little areas. There's no major cracking in the belt. All right, and we're back to the beginning again there. So those two little areas don't really concern me. So this belt I'm going to reuse. It's probably got another couple of years worth of service on it. But I am going to replace that spring, and I'm going to tension the belt properly. All right, guys, so I got a spring put on there, and I've adjusted the belt tension. I just wanted to show you, like, revisit this a little bit. I told you, I gave you a little bit of misinformation. I told you that it should be about an inch worth of play, but that's an inch worth of play when it's actually activated, when the belt is activated by pulling up on the handle. So let me pull up on the handle there and show you there. I got about an inch of play. All right, and then when I release it, because now there's a spring, let me show you that spring underneath here, if I can, that I was talking about. There's a behind this spring here, there's that spring right there. Okay, it goes from that arm right here, and it goes right in there. Okay, there's the other end of that spring like I was showing you earlier. Okay, so that controls the tension on the return tension on this idler pulley. Okay, and that's connected to this arm, which then lifts up on this end of this rod or this plate, whatever you want to call it, and then it actually activates the brake right here when you let go. Then helps to slow down the augers. Okay, so that's all set up now. The tension's all good, and I'm going to put my cover plate back on. All right, guys, the next thing we'll look at here is the paddles. And these paddles, to be honest with you, are probably pretty close to needing replacement. On a lot of these paddles, they actually have basically a wear line or a wear mark of some sort to actually show you when it's time to replace them. And usually they only last you a couple, 2-3 seasons, maybe 4, depending on how much you do. If yours doesn't have a wear line, just kind of look at the space back here in between one of your augers and this sort of back of the housing here. And I mean, if you can stick, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. I can't get you in there close enough, but you know, there's a fairly substantial gap there. I would estimate the gap to be, maybe a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. So this will work. This will throw snow, but not as efficiently as it would if it had brand new paddles. So this could probably use a paddle replacement. And to replace these paddles, fairly simple. You remove these nuts and bolts, and then on the sides, you got a couple of Torx bit screws here, and on one side, and then you've got a nut there on the other side. So fairly easy replacement for those guys. So that's something you want to check out. The other thing you want to check out is the condition of your skid plate down here. Okay, so if yours is worn down to the point where, as I showed you before, the side housings of your machine are rubbing up against the ground, it's time to replace your skid plate. On both sides of mine, someone has replaced this skid plate, and you can see it's not riding on the bottom of the casing at all. So my skid plate's okay. Augers probably could use a repair. We don't use replacement, I should say. We don't get a lot of snow here in southern Ontario. I might use this thing 4 or 5 times, so I might just go maybe another year. But if you're using it quite a few times throughout the year, you might want to consider replacing them when they get down to their wear lines. The last thing that I'm going to show you for this particular video is how to lubricate the chute. Now, I do have a full-on video on how to take this whole thing apart and lubricate the chute properly. If you're already in this guy for some other reason, I was in it for a starter repair. So for down and dirty just sort of lubrication of this chute control. If you wanted to, you could just shoot some lubrication sort of right along the edges, all the way around of this chute, and that's what I'm going to do here. And I'll show you what I'm doing. So the lubricant I'm going to use today is just some of this PB Blaster silicone type lubricant. I have used WD-40 before, just the regular WD-40, but apparently somebody commented on one of my videos that that's actually not a lubricant and you could actually do damage to the plastic, although it says it's safe for plastic. So all I'm going to do is spray it all in this area. All right, and then I'll work the chute around, and I'll go ahead and do that on the other side as well, just so we get lubrication all in this area. And don't be shy, guys. You can always wipe it off after. All right, and then I would just spin it back and forth a few times, and you should find that it's going to start to work its way in, and this thing is already moving like butter. So I'm just going to put this all back together, and then I'm going to put it out in my shed for storage for the summer. But hopefully this was informative, guys. I can't stress enough how a little bit of prep in the springtime is going to work wonders for you in the winter when you go ahead and fire this thing up for the first time. And once again, please, please, please always put fresh fuel. Don't put last year's fuel in your machine when you fire it up. So if you like the video, please go ahead and smash the like button. And if you're not already a subscriber, there's a subscribe button down below with a bell notification icon. If you click that, you'll be notified each and every week I publish new videos. We'll start getting into the summer stuff here shortly with some mowers, trimmers, and all of the likes of that. So until the next project, guys, take care.